You can mention, you know, the elephant in the room. Yeah, stomping fans. Woo! Nah, not even. I just think G2 at the moment have been playing brilliantly in the league. You know, really good Siege, really clean Siege. Obviously, Stompin has played a part of that. I think he's came in and he has enabled Doki to get Doki back to where he was back in 2023.
Oh, Doki's been having the best time.
That's what I think this team has done really well this season, is get Doki back to where it needs to be.
Doki's monitor has been on the precipice of being punched multiple times, but actually out of joy rather than anger, which is the sort of split of it. It's great. The team's played great. We've seen great performance. There's been huge energy from the team. They've seemed to enjoy playing the game, which sometimes they haven't, I think is fair to say. But at this point here, with Virtus.pro getting a pretty clean win earlier on against a team on exactly the same amount of points, can G2 do the same, keep up the pace, where the top two really create that divide that Magico are doing their best to hold on to? It's truly, it's like, not to continue F1 posting. I don't know where you lie about those within the group chat. Where do you sit?
5 seconds to insertion.
Don't really care.
Okay,
Probably
in the middle.
Where I sit. Doesn't affect me.
It's two races right now, and you have BDS on 6 points in 6. You have Magico on 13 points in 5th, up to 16 across the top. Now, obviously, still a couple of teams have to play, but what a divide this table has sort of turned into to fight for what's effectively one position potentially at the bottom, the last playoffs position. And it's anyone still to play for because it's so low. So G2 can sort of keep that guessing game going really here by locking in Fnatic. But Fnatic, if they win this and they set themselves up for a pretty good step, they can move on. They start with the approach across the top floor, just sort of eyeing things out as the IQ digs in underneath. Now Stompin is ripped and ready to go for somebody on towards the white window, but do they know that the IQ isn't a million miles away? Is Pulse reading things a bit too upwards? That might not give some of the game away, but the IQ might get a lucky drift here, Starks.
Yeah, the IQ is also really valuable just looking at the lineup for G2. You know, you can spot out obviously the pulse and the cardiac scanner. Same with Vigil. Valkyrie cameras, yeah, of course. And there you go. You can spot out the cardiac scanner. He knows that the pulse is looking at his teammates who are still patrolling those windows, and Stompin will get that kill back as they actually lost Alamo there to Grubby on that gridlock. And you know, really trying to deny the flank potential as well. That's the game plan for Fnatic. The gridlock and also the Nomad being brought in. So they're trying to limit some of those players of G2 who do like a flank, who like to go for those rotates. So overall for Fnatic, the game plan is try and keep them at bay and just slowly but surely edge your way closer and closer towards that top floor. Use the windows to your advantage and then eventually move in and look for that plant.
I think that's it, right? They've sort of started themselves here on the middle. They're putting the pressure down, telling them to, you know, have to do a long job of going for the clear here. The Pulse still more than happy to pass this information. They've got a minute left, and the IQ is just going to do that spray through game. And Doki's, well, I'm not going to say he hasn't pieced it together, but he's happy where he is, and he isn't going to try and fight against it. It's all still being removed and taken away from this information game. 40 seconds. They're ready to go for the plant here. They're preparing themselves around the pillar, bit of control. Now there is still some smokes that will come through, and there's the first. With 30 seconds, the smokes will be enough to bait it out, so they need this. Wizard over the top, gets rid of the first. Loira now has to turn their attention towards this pressure coming in on the back. He cannot just sit and wait and happily throw those and bait out the rest of the time. In the meantime, Blaz wants to try and close down, but Groovy had that well watched on pillars. A 4 versus 2, 15 seconds. They're just going to move in from the long range smokes. There's the next one being thrown down, and Deepek is forced further and further out. The shield massively hurt. Plant on the opposite corner. There's the cover, and there he is, pushing his way in. Time and time again, he's been a standout force, but just enough positional awareness there. Pushed over the line, G2. And it cut away very quickly, but I'm pretty confident they got that round.
Yeah, they did. 2v4. That's what it was for G2. You know, Fnatic trying to play, you know, slow and steady, not get caught out by the aggression that G2 obviously will want to go for. Whenever you've got the Brazilians running around doing what they do best, then yeah, I think it's a good game plan from Fnatic. It's what a lot of teams have actually been kind of caught out. You know, players like Loira have had massive moments. So yeah, really happy to see them slow the pace down. But this is now the disadvantage of playing too slow. The smoke, massive operator to have in those final few seconds. Nobody from Fnatic really thought maybe we should use that extra man to put pressure on that smoke. Don't allow him just to sit and keep tossing them out. I mean, a great rotate as well from Stomp, being able to slip his way in through Laundry, get himself in towards raiding under the cover of that smoke, and then just appears at the right moment. Time really getting away from Fnatic, but I don't know, I feel as a wizard. Why did he leave the hatch? That's the bit that gets me. Why was he not sat in that hatch ready for that Laundry rotate? So one man out of position allowed that opening for Stomp and just to walk freely back into the site and retake it. You know, Fnatic just left the door wide open there for him.
Yeah, you know, it was sort of that awareness, I guess, of they were running out of time. They had themselves in like a good position. Exactly. They hit that sort of panic moment. Things were going very well for them, apart from time being that big contender. But unfortunately, that is the precursor to panic. It's time, more than anything else. You could be in a 1 versus, you know, you could be in a 5 versus 1. But with 15 seconds left, you'll still probably be panicking. There'll still be that element that is where the other team can punish, and yeah, mistakes aren't made when you have clarity, and mistakes aren't made when you're in a good position. Sucks. Screams their way in. They've got some control here. Quick control of the mid floor, and maybe they've learned from their mistakes. They've been able to get the first 2 levels of this map under a tentative grasp. And they just got to try and angle down towards the site. And are they aware? Stompin has the read without cameras, and they've also got the roaming echoes to try and get as much intel as possible. They're just sort of waiting before Stompin delivers a C4 gift, potentially.
Yeah, maybe you should have brought the IQ again, because it done really good work at removing the Valkyrie cameras in and around the minute mark, which is where you want to be. Take away, you know, all of the info that G2 would love to have as you start going for those executes, and even more so now, the Valkyrie still being brought. The Echo now becomes an addition also. So yeah, the information from G2, it's vast and plentiful. And Fnatic may struggle to deal with that. And again, it's timing for me for Fnatic. You know, a minute 15, they still have to try and assess Loira over towards VIP and Restaurant. And that could be an issue whenever he's still got Goyo canisters to kind of use as that first line of defense for himself.
Well, Alamau's trying to sneak their way back in towards the site, but watched off on the back, and Loira watching on for the drop of the hatch. 50 seconds and a minute has passed, but playing against the Sense Gadget, they're about to be swung from underneath, though. The Loira almost stopped them, but they still had the impact. One more of those, and they catch them on the drop. Groovy sacrificed on the altar, and somebody else sat watching and waiting. 2 for 2, both impacts. Now you've just got to swing and take the fight. The Sense Gadgets can activate and survive. There's the next, and they just go out underneath it. Loira doesn't mind that the doors are closing, because only really on Fnatic's approach here. It's a 4 versus 3. It's not entirely lost, but as they go for the drop into the hatch, it's just another easy pickup. There's at least a trade out finally, but Loira got 3 for the trouble. 7 seconds. The panic. And at this point, Alamau and the Echo can just probably round this out. A 2 versus 1. Who will get the kill first? Alamau hops it.
Well, G2, an easy closeout. Yeah, using plenty of the info, of course, expected, but I mean, Loira, that was his round all day of the week. What he was able to do from VIP was phenomenal. Using the impacts really well. You see the idea from Fnatic was they were trying to be creative. They're trying to use Aurora, but just a simple impact. You know, that's the weakness of that operator. So easy to remove if you have those explosives in pocket. And yeah, drop the hatch, gets the first guy, but what a swing though, as the second roller goes down, just ducks his way past the barricade onto the head of that player pushing down white. I mean, yeah. I've seen more and more teams almost get lazy with trying to take this position. For me, I always expect teams to push in toward VIP, push down towards white, have a shield or a Grim or a Ying or something, pushing down through white, another guy over towards the double window covering his escape, and you just pitch that guy and you kill him. I see so many teams now just try and be lazy and not contest that guy at all anymore. And it just feels like you can't do that in this day and age. And there's a perfect example why you can. It's so easy for a team to just remove the Aurora, for example, to impact away the set. You'll see a lot of impact operators who's got impact grenades will play in that position for that very reason, because teams are just getting more lazy at actually clearing that player towards VIP.
It's also the sort of idea of they were operating that with enough time where Loira could do each step individually. Sure, it was a very narrow margin, but everything was procedural. There wasn't a moment where he wasn't having to juggle between gadgets as quick as the engagements were coming. He was able to keep ducking in and out of engagements when he wanted to, as well as destroying those walls. You know, it's one of those things where it's just that slight disconnect offers an opportunistic player like Loira is, who has instantly opened up 5-1 from the back of that huge round before to where he is. There's nobody home this time, but lucky to survive, I say, as he then wants the fight before he drifts away, and he's about to find another one. And as I said, you know, he's opportunistic. He wants these engagements. He's not shying away. He's about to get droned out in this position. The IQ isn't a million miles away. Groovy finds the end of Stompin up top. That might be a bit of a read. Nope, Sarks gets dropped. That's the IQ, caught unaware. Potentially, we saw the IQ was looking up and trying to drift around, and maybe they just trusted that Loira had left.
Yeah, again, Sarks usually for this team, he will just play that lurk role where he'll be by himself a lot of the time, just looking for a gap, looking for an opening. But again, the downside is no one's really with him for the trade-off. So yeah, that's the issue that you have with a player like that. Yes, he can reward you big, but there's always going to be cons to any pro list that you have. Right now for G2, again, it's just burning down the time for Fnatic, using the clock to their advantage. Fnatic have not been the fastest team today so far in Cafe from what we've seen. They do have the man advantage though, and G2 will have to play from yet again another man deficit, but that really hasn't phased them so far today. All three players from G2 in that triangle formation almost, you know, one guy over towards the corridor, another guy in sight, another one lingering just on the edge between sight, and maybe Doki might opt for a bit of a flank if he has the opportunity to do so, but it could be difficult whenever we know that Nomad and Gridlock has been a mainstay for Fnatic so far. 3v3, as Loira was able to find one, and you can see G2, they're just being forced out of sight now. Once those vertical angles are being taken up by Fnatic, they start opening up the floor. Very difficult to find a safe position.
Bit of pressure coming round, and a bit more revealed. Hits the goo mine, pulls back. Does he know about the second player? No, but I think he's still got a kill out of the trade there. Unbelievable. Deepak still has a goo mine in pocket. Oh, in pocket? In foot. That he's still not been able to remove. Hits another one. They're just having to send it because look at the time demo. It's up.
Wow. Yeah, time again. Don't know what it is, but Fnatic, they're trying this slow and steady approach where they're really trying to set the tempo, but they're just getting caught out by these kind of little movements that G2 make where they kind of move into a position you don't expect someone to be in there. Maybe they're struggling in that final minute for the drone work. Maybe that's what they're struggling with, is just figuring out where the G2 players are. Because a lot of the time, whenever they go for these pushes into that final 20 seconds, they just don't really know where they are. You know, that's what they're struggling for right now. It's information. Not looking good. I mean, it's close. Like, I feel as though the rounds have been close, but still G2 sit 3-0. That has to be addressed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, you're not going to sort of say that it's rough at this point, because there are elements of it, but it's almost similar to what we saw when we talked about, say, Wolves earlier on, where it's that execute, that final sort of moment, things are falling apart. It's a little bit more back and forth than it was in that game. There's still some sort of setting in, there's still some sort of pressure, and it's coming down to these rooted moments. But if the difference is 20 seconds, that's the 20 seconds that you have to try and find somewhere. And that's what they're sort of talking about now. You assume, obviously, unfortunately, we don't get listen-ins anymore. They're, you know, getting a better idea of it. But G2 at this point, they're happy. They're running around. Groovy's happy as well. They know that it's not a million miles away. But unfortunately, it's like those dreams where you're running and running and trying to get close, but it just keeps being out of reach. That's these rounds so far.
Well,
So a
G2
lot
will
of
be happy.
a Loira dip.
I'm going to say, whenever Loira's playing well, that's where the team's going to be, you know they're playing well if he's on it. Same way that Pasha kind of said in his interview, if Joystick is fragging out, then yeah, smiles all around. And I think the same can be said about G2. G2 obviously went through a phase for a good period of time where they were chopping and changing players and just nothing really stuck. I will say Loira came in, didn't really know what to expect. Yes, we've seen him inside of Brazil, who's a Black Dragons. And, you kind of think, oh, well, that's just the Brazilian connection, isn't it? Carl's went for a friend, quote unquote, we'll say. But no, honestly, he could be better than Carl. He probably is better than Carl, isn't he? Carl's not good compared to Loira. I think Loira's been their standout player. As much as Doki has had, yes, his moments, he had a really good week, I think, last week. I think Loira, just the consistency, what he brings to the table, that creative mind of making those great plays. Yeah, I think Loira, for me, so far this stage, is probably my favorite player to watch in G2.
There's obviously the idea, as we talk about Doki being propped up, Loira was also one of those players coming in, and obviously it's always the conversation, which you know more than anyone, is how do you solve a problem like Nobenja, which is generally where they've been at for a period of time. You start running the numbers elsewhere, right? You start looking at how you can prop up other young guns, and Loira has been brilliant. And when he first joined, there were a couple of question marks. He wasn't quite hit at the boards, but then he's just got better and better and more confident, which not everyone has been able to do. What's the Brad Pitt baseball game film? I'll talk about it in a second, because Blaz has just killed Groovy in Cigar and kind of got away with a bit of daylight robbery there. The pressure's still on towards the Pixel shield. They pulled out this position. They were so focused on stomping, they didn't pay enough attention towards Cigar. Missed out on that early kill. Sarks is almost gone, and the players dropped off. Now they have the pings on them, but as Jags gets Alamau, there's still a lot of traded damage here, Damo.
Yeah, I don't know how they haven't assessed Pixel yet. That is the most common position that we have on Cafe top floor. It is where Stomping is right now. That should just be a swift burn through the util and get an aid in that shield. Or the man, one of the two. He'll do the same job, but the fact that he's still allowed to be in that position is a worry, because he can hold on to Piano. He also has the holes opened up towards the bar, so he can also deny them just walking into sight. So Stompin is in the key position. He is in the power position that Fnatic will have to address. In terms of util, they've only got the one nade left, and that's from Deepek. And is Deepek anywhere near this shield? Not at the moment.
Spraying on through, trying to get the catch, still on this position, just being overwhelmed here, but Blaz cannot really take a step forward without that happening.
Oh dear.
Yeah, had to get all of them perfectly. A 4 versus 2, 30 seconds. You can see he's frustrated himself, but now's the time for Doki and Loira to activate. Still covering on the smoke. Deepek does go down, but there's the swing in. A very quick closeout now, and it just leaves the single position left. There's one, moves instantly on the back of a mirror window, so they knew where he was because they could see through. And Fnatic, the timeout nets success on the top floor. It's
worked for them. Yeah, I was worried about, obviously the Frost was a great position, Stomping great position to hold it down, but it looked though he couldn't finish that first kill onto the line. I think if he was able to connect that kill, then he would have been in a great position, but then they kind of knew where he was and they just kind of played around it. I mean, this was obviously a big blunder there from Blaz, getting caught out by the track stingers, but it's weird that they're still attempting the flanks, well knowing that Gridlock and Nomad are always being brought by Fnatic. We know that they want to deny those flanks as often as they can, especially in that red stairs. It's a very high traffic area for defenders and attackers alike. So just blocking that off, just putting up the cones and saying, road's not working today. It's, yeah. So the way I look at it, it's a weird play from Blaz. But yeah, G2 falter, they lose their first round. Fnatic on the board.
5 seconds remaining.
Now we go back down into the basement, and obviously this is a round where Loira played exceptionally well. A different approach than from Fnatic. They're bringing in Aurora, for example. Not opting for that. You've got Captown makes his way in alongside a Glaz. So I wonder maybe if they're going to be more centered around a bakery take, for example, because Captown's great at going for that front side. You can clear a bakery very, very easily, but then again, you can also use them for the back side. Just send in the Captown bolts from the double window into VIP, and try and flush out that guy who did cause them so many issues here the last time.
I think that's it, is obviously, you know, they, as we said, they knew where things were going wrong. They knew the problems to try and pull apart here. There's no attempted throw on the Loira on towards that position. So, Loira's not going to be as fed as they were before. But still some pace across the top here, making their way in on towards the stairs and starting to close down from below. The Valkyries obviously been removed from the possibility. There's no need to try and counter it with the IQ. It's going to be a much more unknown approach here. Obviously, we saw G2 getting a full read on the position. I'm wondering if that's something that might sort of punish them. I was going to say it put a bit more caution. They weren't around this position a moment ago, and instead, Boss Stompin has moved into it afterwards, maybe hoping if they've already droned it, think it's clear, and don't think anyone is going to be bold enough to rotate under open roof.
Yeah, Fnatic again just going for the checklist, and it's pretty basic. But it's not the opening half I worry about. It's the second half where they actually have to get in and start challenging onto these G2 players. It's all well and good to open up the floor because it's easy enough. G2 will just step aside from that. Fnatic aren't going to gain much value other than just force them out of positions. It is all pressure on Loira. Again, that is what they have to try and break through. They've still got plenty of util. I'm just curious to see how they're going to play with it. Is it going to be a case of smoking them out, firing them out? That's really the options that they have. Only time will tell.
Well, they're aware of this position, and they're not just going to take some damage on the tack on the drop, but 40 seconds demo. All 10 players still standing. We are about to be off to the races. The cover of the smoke will go through. There will be a bit of a drop underneath, and it's the second he looked away, but he does pick up the second as Alamau swings to the first and moves their way up Brown. Now, with 26 seconds, just misses the sledge, and the sledge does not miss back. They get at least the vertical under their control, and Jegs picks apart Blazer 3 versus 3. All the coverage of the smoke, the fire to stop them swinging in, but can they try and move with the kit behind it? It's a lot of damage to get close, and Deepak does get stomping. There's the swing onto the default plant spot. The Loira just tucks in. There's 3. Didn't get them at the start of the round because he was happy to find them at the end.
Just total demon mode. My word, Loira again. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch from Fnatic because they're doing all the right things right until the final hurdle. You know, they are leading that race right the way through. They see the finish line and then they trip. That's the best way to sum it up. They use the Capitao bolt, they use the smoke bolt to try and cover off Loira's line of sight. However, he smoked the feet holes. So that means that Loira could still see just that little bit of a gap at the top. He can still see, look, he can still see the Habana drop plain as day. That smoke needed to be more centered so it covers the whole wall, or even more so, just smoke him off. Again, they are not addressing that player again. They're trying just to be lazy again. They're being lazy at that VIP player. And it's so frustrating. Just go and kill the guy. Force him out. Just smoke whatever you have to do. You cannot allow him to be in that position because he's king to bite you in the backside again. Twice in a row that's happened.
Change it.
4-1 G2. Can Fnatic take a knock on the chin post timeout and still try and find some rounds to swing on? That'll be the step forward here, but Loira 11-2 across the opening 5 rounds. I mean, you said it, leaving up to the namesake. But the thing is, you look at the rest of G2, right? Nobody else is really popping off in a similar manner. Sure, you could say they don't have to, but it's not that Loira is entirely infallible. And actually, when you've got, you know, Jegs and Wizard both positive, both getting themselves in, Fnatic, I'm not going to say they're a bit hard done by because, well, they're not. As you said, it's the end of the round that's going away from them, but they're doing so much right. And there it is continuing. That opening kill is enough to so far put Loira as the only positive player for G2.
Nitro set.
And there's another... Okay. Jegs is trying a game here, but...
Have air jabs.
Oh,
good night.
see ya.
Yeah, back to Brazil. Off you go.
And Loira's gone. All right, there is a minute 30. To be fair to them, Fnatic have almost done this entirely without entering the building.
Yeah, on Windows. I mean, that's Cafe though, isn't it? You know, it's
Yeah.
pretty frequent thing that we see in this map. Yeah, G2 just a little bit too aggressive, and they have been punished because of that. And now it's down to Stompin' and Blaz for a 2v5, and like you mentioned, plenty of time still for Fnatic to see this one over the line. Plenty of nades as well for them. Good to go. The next stage now for the G2 players, they have to go aggressive. They have to try and get some kills back. They just can't sit back in sight. They'll get overran if they try and do so, but sometimes whenever you're out hunting for the kills, things can go from bad to worse a lot of the time. Now Stompin' has a 1v5 to go up against. Look at that Blackbeard as well he has to deal with, and as soon as they find out where he is, which they've done so,
Yeah, someone
just
conjuring
a matter of time. Yeah, this is fish in a barrel.
It's just like, good luck, soldier. But,
Wow,
that was
shot from three different ways.
That was some real Halo reach. That was mission survive. Fnatic, 2 rounds. They get themselves in. They get themselves some bit of a beachhead, some bit of a foothold. Now they can go onto their defense. They can try and get this leveled up, not too far away, right? And G2, at that point, knowing that there's pressure on Fnatic, who are trying to get that 6th spot, that is all they're sort of angling for. There's pressure for G2 to try and fight for one of those top 2. They're confirmed to be able to make playoffs, and that's great, but don't step out of the race until the race is done, right? They're always hunting.
Well, this map, I think, is pretty even in terms of attackers and defenders. At the moment, it sits just under for the attackers, as they have a 43% win rate, but still, I think even halves have been doable this split so far on a map like Cafe. But at the moment, it's G2 leading 4-2, but certainly individual brilliance has to come into it. You know, Loira played out of his skin so far in that defense side. Now we'll see if G2 can replicate their success over on the attacks. Now, G2 on the attacks for me, I always feel they can go bad pretty quickly, but see whenever they are good, they are a beauty to behold. See whenever they are opportunity spotting really well and they find those gaps. Obviously, Alamar and Loira do that oh so well. So you just hope the Fnatic will try and keep it tight. I think that's what they need to do. They need to make sure everything is checked. They don't give them a gap. Every staircase is going to be covered by something, which at the moment looking like I'm a little bit worried about. Only just 2 bits of barbed wire. That's all they have. I would have loved to have seen maybe a Legion be brought in. That's maybe my only worry I have, because look, Doki's on a nuke, for example. You've got the Dokkaebi in as well. You know, you can kind of see the pattern forming that G2 will look to expose. Just the sheer layout of the map. You've got 3 sets of staircases that you can enter in from that first floor.
Yeah, I think that's it, right? Is expect G2 to try G2 things. They have the ability to sneak up. It's very powerful on this map to have a confident player. It's also quite known, right? It's not the strangest thing for a Nook to suddenly appear, as has been on this map for a long time.
Drone's ready.
At this point, they're putting a lot of faith in the 2 bits of bar, but then also maybe an information network of those Valk cams and just players themselves trying to be a bit obstinate, if that's the word I'm trying to think of before I get corrected. There's the fight, the Warden ready to check in on Lumber, and, well, they're going to try and cook him out, and he's just pushed away from the position, but nothing too immediately destructive. In the meantime, they've just swung their way around, but Wizard still wins it out. Loira just sort of sent it, and his teammates could only but watch him die, Demo.
Yeah, I think Doki just doesn't really know what he wants to do. Does he want to push in? Does he not hold the angle? And Alamau just misses out on that pick, but they do know where he is, and maybe they could rotate in some nades. See the contest from Stompin', but again, just cannot connect. A little bit of a cover. He's going to connect, but a great shot, though, from Stompin' onto Grubby. Takes him out. Still one more player, though. Wizard. He has the hatch open. Oh, we'll take down Alamau. Maybe looking for more, but no, there's the pressure on the window and stomping. Good for 2 so far. So there's going to be a lot of bloodshed for that top floor for Fnatic, but they have been able to get 2 kills in return and also waste 2 minutes. So a minute left for G2. They've only just got control of that top floor.
Ready to breach.
But what about the vertical work? None of that has been done whatsoever from G2's perspective.
This is it, right? This is where that conversation about when I said sometimes the Nook can try and sneak their way upstairs, even on a site like this, to cause some problems. They just haven't had any of that lead in, and instead it Starks' this known position at the back end. There's a trade out though. Leave Stomping in a 1 versus 2. He knows where Starks is, but you can only hear where Deepak is, and there's the reveal of a single player, but couldn't quite make the connection there. Fnatic open up and bring us within touching distance between the 2 teams.
I do feel sorry for Doki, holding on to that pillar door the entire round, and as soon as he walks in, Stark swings. Oh, you couldn't make it up. Unlucky for him, but yeah. Fnatic, look, they fought for that top floor control. They wasted a good amount of time. They were in, again, good rat position in towards pillars, catch them by surprise. I think just G2 probably themselves, they probably feel as though they took too long with clearing out the guys above. I think that's probably what kind of done them in.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of scrambling to look for these picks, get the drone work done, and just still a lot of work to be done once they got to this point, you know?
It's also, I guess, the thread of how things operated on the top. So, you know, they went for the deep send on Loira. They had the single sort of watch on the position. The player on the eastern windows, I'm not entirely sure whether they were on the white window at that time or on the bar window. And then they forced the player out of lumber, but it almost felt like the Dokkaebi didn't expect a player to be in that position. Loira wasn't looking for it, so I'm wondering if they thought that there was just one up there that ran all the way deep, or if they thought they rotated elsewhere, or they were too focused. It's almost like if there wasn't that Capital fire that forced the Warden off, the Dokkaebi would have actually had a 1 versus 1. And I don't know, it's those are things where we could only look at it in operation, and you throw down however many numbers and you'll always come up with different ones. It's a start and a positive one for Fnatic. Now we get to sort of stay on the same floor. We'll see if there's obviously less chance of being sneaky this time round, but a heavy lockdown on that intel. The Mozzie to control any of their opponents, but then also the Valk and Maestro, as well as the Melusi. They're playing a game here, and it's we know where you are and what you want to do. Try and do it.
Yeah, really trying to fortify this bomb site down, bringing in the Maestro, obviously, to give them not only the information, but of course the denial that you can have if someone is attempting a plant. You know, that laser does chunk quite a bit, and there goes the Dokkaebi call, and it will be followed up with a kill. Loira able to find 1 on this double window. Repel don't see that all too often, but he's got himself in to try and patrol that pillar area, because this will allow his team now to start pushing in deep in towards Train, because they don't have to worry about pillar.
Well, they're going for the plant. The Maestro bubble is going to zap them, but the C4 stuck on the door! Oh, that could have been huge, but unfortunately, all it is a testament and a monument to a round probably going away from them here. There's pressure either side and above. Does get 1 out of it and gets himself close, but Loira locks it down. G2 just sort of dismantled the hold there.
Yeah, I really like that take. A lot of the time, if you're trying to force your way in through Museum, obviously, Pillar's going to be your downfall. You know, plenty of times you see a player in Pillar who can just swing onto the double door, has that soft wall that you can also just wall bang you through. So it's always a bit of a position that attackers need to address, but it is very difficult just because it's a big open room. You know, if you're trying to take in towards Pillar, then you have to try and take above because there could be a roamer above you. Yeah, a lot of work you have to go to really take control of that side of the map. So I like that idea from G2. Play the Grim, use all of his util, not so much for a site execute, which generally that's where we see the Grims be used to spot the people inside the site so they can't move. And they've used it just to cut off a potential flank. You know, all of the B's in, he sits in the window. That planter should be feeling so safe because nothing can really touch him apart from a C4, which was missed.
Yeah, that was rough. I mean, at that point, we talk about panic and we talk about those moments. It's becoming...
Attacker's objective is to defuse a bomb.
Okay. Our observer just letting us know that Doogie is furious. We'll leave that for the analysts to talk about. That feels like an analyst conversation.
That's not our job description.
That's not our job description. We don't get involved in that. We just... I'm play-by-play. That's well out of my range.
I just say what teams did good and what they did bad.
I was already wrong on the rule book earlier.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know rules.
I actually feel as though part of our job, though, is what's in the background. I always feel that's a good one we like to do. Like Loira, for example, is in the pit of darkness. We don't know what's in behind him.
No. But that's how he plays so well.
Well, to be fair, that's why he's a demon. He's in the shadows. That's it.
You don't have demons in the light.
Light kills
He's
him.
lit like Batman. For all the Batman memes that have been posted about siege teams before, Loira
Yeah.
might be the one that's about to be patient, waiting. Oh no. Realised maybe they weren't going to go as soon as he'd hoped and didn't get anything netted on the back of it. Looking for the players to maybe rotate back in for Bakery. Ooh, Groovy. Wanted to fight but stomping. Is able to get more damage done. Survives. With that gun, you know, it's not the end of the world. You can still try and get some quick ends to other players. The grenades to try and force the VIP player off, but at this point they have a bit of time to make up for here. G2.
Yeah, again, similar to Fnatic, going above, pretty slow and methodical at the moment. It is just going to be down to how well you can deal with that VIP player. You know, we've seen the damage that Loira was able to do from that position. I just hope that G2 will address that and they actually will try and kill the guy, because just trying to drop against them, it's going to be really difficult for them. The fuse going to be used to try and remove a lot of that util, mostly being the Goyo canisters and the Maestro, so you will see value out of the cluster charges. Maestro actually zapped one of it, but still got a few out. But sadly, though, the cluster charges didn't have the height to actually reach those cameras, so they will remain up. So that could cause a few issues for G2 as they try and attempt getting this plant down. And they now will use another one. Is it going to be enough? It is. It's going to bounce perfectly onto the sinks and actually catch that Maestro camera. So yeah, that bit of util I was worried about, it is gone now.
Ooh, Deepak caught out by a grenade here, and 20 seconds to try and still lock out this smoke player, but someone else isn't too far away on the swing on the bottom of Brown, and you're wondering at this point, okay, G2, you got to try and turn this into an execute. There's the drop on the shield, there's the motion inside the site itself. They're still worried about someone going for the swing, but now, with this little pocket of space, they're going to go for the plant. Blaz has the cover on Sucks. The vertical is there, and they're going to try and move their way in, and there's Doki with the long watcher post plant. A little bit too late. Over the side of a shield, trying to spray it. Doki has the cover, and it's a 1 versus 4. Groovy does find one at the end, but now with this plant position, it's a long route and road back through. Tries to get anything to connect with the player above, but couldn't. It was Stompin who put him so low held such a long time ago. Well, Doki's going to be the end of it. G2, with a little bit of a road bump, have put themselves on towards map point.
Yeah, good round from G2, assessing all of the util that they need to get rid of, using the fuse. Good job. You can see the VIP player. What did they do? They threw a simple nade, just a bit of util, to stop that guy from being able to swing the players as they dropped. As simple as that. I will say Doki's very fortunate that Fnatic did not give the smoke any bits of counter utility, by the way. Not a Lamitis, not an ADS, nothing. That was also very risky from Fnatic, playing that position dry, essentially. But yeah, simple nade, stops him from swinging onto that double door. You can drop the players into freezer then. That guy's then going to get desperate to try and challenge back into freezer. Doki held his angle, got his kill, able to move in. No denial because the Maestro cameras were out of there. Simple plant. Yeah, clean round from G2.
You know, I think that's it, right? Is they are seeing the opportunities and they're prepared enough to lock it down. There is a bit of missed moments of utility, sure. But unfortunately, Fnatic, they just a couple of steps too far away from this game? Is it the fact they were a little bit slow to warm into it? Remember, it opened on the sort of 0-3. If it hadn't since then, you were on a pretty decent back and forth here from the side of Fnatic. Unfortunately, a back and forth is only going to end in a loss if they've already got themselves that sort of head start and that lead. Sarks with a quick steal of somebody else's drone. gives them a nice little
5 seconds
viewpoint
left.
on the top floor, but what will be that
Attacker's
sort of
objective is to
different
defuse the bomb.
factor here? They're
Looks like today's your lucky
back
day.
towards a position of success. This could get them obviously the 6-4 position, but then there's still 2 more rounds to potentially play after that.
Big challenge for Fnatic. They need to try and dig their heels in, get some more defenses on the board. G2 though, cruising right now. That'll give them a good boost in just how well that previous round went. Back on the windows, where G2 will start their approach. Again, Piano is usually the heart and soul whenever we look at towards the top floor and in towards these mid-floor bomb sites, of course. A little bit of fortification from Fnatic. Plenty of ADSs in and around the back cocktail area. Have to be careful of that. Twitch still has 1 drone in the pocket. Can maybe try and get that in, remove those ADSs, which will make things a lot easier. But never mind, it's a fast approach again from G2. Firing in that util early on, uses the flashes, uses the fire, and now they've actually got control of flanks. So this stops Grubby from rotating back. He is stuck in this corner. So it's just a matter of how many he's going to take with him, and that's 0.
Ooh, okay, so the grenade does get the end of Grubby, but the C4
shock drone.
connects on towards 1, and well, that does trade things in a sort of interesting situation. Potentially, Doki had already got some of that set up. You can see that they're droning it. Starks with another stolen cam is well aware of the air jab position on this stair set. There's still more pressure from the C4. I think that sounded like another drone has maybe been caught there by the Mozzie. They've just absolutely been rife with information now. They're aware someone's coming up the back, but it's drawn focus from G2. They have to check and recheck themselves at this point, and it's making the map become very dangerously malleable. Both teams keep sort of taking and retaking and losing space, and you can see the pings and the concerns of, well, we're not safe now. If we go here, oh, Wizard, wait it, but there's someone else going for the rip, and obviously there's still other opportunities. There's a fight up the stair set that Alamau pulls away from 50 seconds. They're just trying to find that route through.
Right now for G2, it's establishing control over towards Pillar, because that's where you would like to start pushing in towards and try and plant. Deepak has only 1 smoke grenade left, and down goes the player inside of Laundry. Look, there's a quick drop from Vlad straight in. He sees the opportunity. He's killed the guy holding down the site. Straight in for the plant.
Oh, the C4 doesn't connect. They've been able to get the plant down. There's Blaz gone, but he's done the job he needs to, as have G2. They find themselves the 3 points. Fnatic put up a fight, but unfortunately, as I said, with the first 3 rounds going away from them, since then it was just on the back